So it's time to start building a world. I'm not quite sure where you want to go. You've seen a couple of videos on world building. You've read a couple of blogs, but it doesn't seem to really, scratch that itch. Really give you the details that you need. May I suggest the Game World Generator by Kent David Kelly. This is probably the most comprehensive book on world building for role-playing games that I've ever seen. It's thick. It's 400 something pages? Yeah, you're looking at 430 pages. It's got all kinds of random tables in here for creating town names, resources, but where it really shines is this. Oh, not the table of contents. Glossary. Here, part 1. 26 steps into the Dreamlands, which is basically, 26 steps into creating a world. It gives you step-by-step guidance on everything from drawing your first continent all the way to your starting area. So your last one is choose one sector that you find the most interesting and flesh out several of the regions in that sector. This will be your starting area. And it goes on like creating your landforms, putting all your pieces of paper together to create one giant world map, placement, create where to put your hemisphere, scale. It even has your zones, your cold, near Arctic, subarctic, temperate, subtropical, tropical, continental divides, which is your mountain ranges going straight down the middle of your continent, your mega rivers like your Amazons, the Nile, things like that, adding in your mountain ranges, everything you need for creating your game world, all the way up to the beginning, your starting area. Is really an invaluable tool for game masters and world builders, and it might seem daunting because it's showing you how to create the entire world at the beginning, but very often throughout the book it says don't worry about the rest of the world, just focus on this area. So we're going to take a look at the map I drew using this book, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my Handdrawn World Map here. It's on 12 pieces of hex paper. I had to cut off the edges because there was a border, and eventually I'm going to tape this together. For me, my starting area right now is going to be this area right here. It's really kind of hard to see when you're not up close to it. That's why I'm going to add a bit of color, at least for here. And then eventually I'll color in the whole thing and like color in the rivers and whatnot. But for right now, I want to sort of show where the border of the water and the land is and color in the rivers that are around it. At least that'll give me like a starting place. The rest of it, I'm going to eventually I'll get around to doing the rivers and whatnot. I've done a lot of the mountains. I'll probably add some more mountains somewhere just to break it up a bit more and create some more natural borders that will create different realms in this world. So for right now, I'm just going to sort of create this like hash mark around the border here with this blue. And oddly enough, in my house I don't have any colored pencils left, so I need to get more, and then I'll be able to really do this properly. But for now, this will work. I just want to create the separation between the land and the water. And that'll give me a bit more definition to work with. And it'll be easier to look at too, because it's going to be, that contrast will make it easier to kind of work on without always having to readjust my focus and think about what I'm looking at. So the Game World Generator book, if you're interested in world building and kind of going step by step, it's a really good resource to have, even if you don't use it like start to finish. Like I use it, but I didn't use all the tips, and I'm not finished reading it. But it kind of gives you that step by step from the creating your entire, whether you want to just do a continent or starting with your entire world like I did. It kind of gives you that guidance from the first steps of how to draw your continent and how to lay it out, to kind of deciding where your starting area is going to be and why certain things should be there. Like this idea of having this sort of sea in the middle of this inland sea here, that's from the book, because eventually what it's going to do is it's going to be a little bit like the Mediterranean, where it's going to be able to have several nations or realms around it. The sea is large enough that it's going to prevent players from just crossing from one side to the other. So it's kind of forces them. I'm not going to go on to the other sheet right now. Kind of forces them to have, like if they were to say start here, it kind of forces them to have to go this way unless they hire a boat or a ship to get across, and then you're creating all kinds of other adventures for them. So I don't know if you'll be able to see it very well, but here I've got this blue. Let's go around a bit with a darker color here. Just like that. Maybe not the shade of blue I would have liked, but it's what I was able to find in my house at the time. I used to have a whole set of colored pencils. I'm not sure what happened to it. Pretty sure my daughter used them all. Or lost them all, one or the other. Alright, so I have this mega river here. I've got another large river here, but this is like a mega river. I think I would like to have another one. I have several rivers all over the place, but I think probably in this island continent here, there's going to be another massive river that runs most of the continent. I'll add to this. Of course, all the rivers are going from the mountains out to the sea. You're never going to have a river going from one mountain range through another mountain range. I mean, it's a fantasy world. You could if you wanted to, but like, if you want to keep that little bit of realism, that's just not something you're likely to see. There we go. All right, so those rivers are drawn out. And again, these look wide. These hexes are all 24 miles. So when I zone in and create my starting area, I'll use like a 4-in-1 hex. So there'll be 4 6-mile hexes within that one 24-mile hex. And that way it'll be easier for me to pick an area and scale it down exactly how I want it. Snowplows. We're having a bit of a snowstorm today. So not all the rivers that I eventually draw in here are going to be this thick. Like some of them will just be like a squiggly blue line. Just to denote that it's a more of a minor river. Right here, just to make this delineation between the water and the land a little more obvious. Let's go over it with some black. Like I said, I didn't follow the book to the letter, but I took most of the major ideas and advice into it. So like the premise of the book, I mean the premise of the book is world building, but in the introduction of the book, the author says that the book itself was basically created because you'll see a lot of these world building books or world building blogs or videos, what have you, where it gives you advice and tells you how to get started, but not really step by step. So like this book, it goes through and it tells you like the differences between a duchy and a kingdom, how many people you'll find in a village or a city or a town. It kind of gives you all that advice up front and like those little pointers, which is true. Like when I thought about it after I started reading it, I was like, yeah, it's kind of true. Like a lot of it is just like, oh, well, oh shit. I went right through the paper there. Oof. That's not press so hard. I have this paper on like a foam board underneath, which is probably not ideal. Just because there's a big crack in the middle of my table. I didn't want to go through the paper into the crack, but instead I went through the paper into the foam board. No. Sucks to suck. So yeah, as I was saying, I realized he was kind of right. There's a lot of the time it's like start small, start with your town, and then build it from there. And that's just like go build, be creative. This kind of lets you be creative while giving you structure and some good advice. I think I'm going to have to update some videos as I go along and keep working on this just to show where it's going. So if you look at some of my other videos, you'll see that I did the Gygax 75 challenge. The Game World Generator book kind of falls into that. It gets you to, after you've sort of drawn your world or a continent, whatever, it zooms into your starting area, and it kind of very reminiscent of the Gygax 75. Like the whole book is written with old school style playing in mind. So it kind of fits right into that style of world design and play, or placing dungeons all over the place and exploration and stuff like that, which is nice. You're giving you a campaign world, but still with sort of that old school sensibility. And there we go. So just with a little, whoops, board's coming apart. Just with a little bit of that blue, some of this blackish gray, this pops out a lot more. So I don't even need to color all this in. It's the suggestion of water is there. You can see the rivers coming out. And I think that's pretty much all I need to do. I just need to go around the rest of the world. Although I'm kind of holding out, like this area I'm set, like that's how that's going to look. So the rest I might decide to change the shape of the continents a bit and the land masses a bit. So I'm going to hold off on doing this kind of delineation between the land and the water a bit. I'm going to hold off on doing that until I'm really set, like that's how it's going to look. But for now, I like the aesthetic of this. I'm going to have to do something about those mountains, maybe like shade them in, color them in gray. There's basic, sort of the basic symbol for mountains on a hex map. But overall, I'm really pleased with this book. It's definitely worth your time for $25 on Amazon. I think you can go. It's $25 Canadian. It's cheaper than that in the States. You can. It's definitely something to pick up, even if you don't decide to use it start to finish for world building. For a lot of the information that's in it, it's pretty valuable. I hope this helped a little bit. I know you didn't really get to see my pretty face, but that's how it goes sometimes. So until next time, until I bring you back and keep working on this a bit, I'm Tristan for Heroes in Homebrew, and save a seat for me at your table.